Hey Lisa, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to have this chat with you. I've been interviewing a number of people since the workshop on imposter syndrome, and what is so fascinating to me is the different viewpoints and different people's experiences. So I'm delighted that you could take the time today, and I'd love if you would share with the audience a little bit about yourself, and then perhaps a little bit around your personal experience of imposter syndrome, if you've experienced it, and a little backstory around that.
Thanks for having me here, Sharon. It's a pleasure. And like yourself, I love diving into this topic and exploring it, because I think so many people relate to it.
Yeah.
And even if they never heard of imposter syndrome, which I hadn't have heard of imposter syndrome up until about probably 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what it was. And when I discovered it, I was like, okay, so that's what's going on.
Yeah, and I've had people say that to me since I've had this conversation, or when I talk about doing the workshop, they were like, what is imposter syndrome? And when I explain it about, feeling like somebody knows something you don't, or feeling about, you're going to get a tap on the shoulder that you haven't a clue, people go, oh, that's me. So yeah, I agree with you. Some people, they haven't heard the terminology, but they've still had the experience. Totally.
Exactly. And I guess for a little bit about me. So I am a female confidence coach. I work with women who really want to move forward, level up, build a really good relationship with themselves, a healthy relationship with themselves, and then move on to building those relationships out, whether it's with personal relationships, with loved ones, or career relationships. But it all starts with yourself. So yeah, because if we don't have a good relationship with ourselves, it's very hard to build a healthy relationship outwards. So for me, it all started with when I was younger, in my teens and my 20s. I had very low self-confidence and very low self-esteem within. From the outside, everybody used to say, but Lisa, you've got your SH1P together. And I was like, maybe I do, I'm not too sure. But I knew I didn't. Like, as looking back, when I started doing the work, I could see what was going on with me. So when it came to me leveling up, taking my career to the next level, getting uncomfortable, perhaps making mistakes or looking bad, I ran. So I moved. I would find a job that would be more for me, more up, like, so I was always looking, the grass always seemed greener everywhere I went. And I did that in my career, and I had fantastic opportunities that were presented to me. And yes, I went in, but instead of really grasping them and embracing them and feeling the fear when times got tough and I had to get uncomfortable, I looked for something else. And this went on and went on. And it was kind of like trying to find my missing piece. I didn't know what. I was like, why? I'm never content. I'm not content. I'm always looking for the grass to be greener. It was the same. I've traveled a lot. I've been to different countries and traveled, and the same experience. So it just shows that no matter where you go, you bring yourself.
There you are. Wherever you go, there you are.
Exactly. It just popped up. And I guess it was, I had experience in like romantic relationships that weren't great for me. I didn't stand by my values. I didn't create boundaries. I got married, and my marriage didn't work out because obviously, we were two people with two very different sets of values. And I wasn't aware of standing in my values and what my values really were, because I had no concept of who I was, what's good for me, what's right for me, because I was comparing myself to others, wanting to be liked, and just not standing for myself.
And I feel like, sorry, go ahead. Sorry, Lisa.
So when I, separated from my ex-husband and I started doing the work and looking inwards and saying, okay, what's the common denominator here? I realized what was going on. I had low self-esteem. I had a negative self-image. And even though it didn't look that way from the outside, inside, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know who I stood for. And I wasn't clear on my values. And I didn't trust myself.
And I think that's the kicker. Isn't that the kicker? That on the outside, it's not people that seem like they're nervous or apprehensive. The people who experience imposter syndrome are frequently the people who look like, as you say, have their SH1T together. And that was mine. Everybody was like, but you're Sharon, you're all over everything. You have it, like you're on top of everything. And I completely felt like I wasn't doing anything 100%. So I find that so fascinating. And I know you work an awful lot with people on, building their confidence from the inside out. And for me, it's leadership from the inside out. The same thing, exactly what you're saying. It starts with ourselves. And I think we grow up, particularly as women, with the validation coming from outside. Oh, isn't she pretty? Isn't she lovely? And you hear these confirmations of behavior, and then you think, exactly to that missing piece. What's missing? Because you're like, I don't feel okay inside, but everyone's telling me everything's okay on the outside. So I'm so sorry for interrupting you, but I just think that's so valid for people. It's absolutely. People who look like they have everything together and that they wouldn't have an issue with confidence and they wouldn't have a problem speaking up for themselves, who are often the people who are like doubting themselves the most and criticizing themselves the most. Yeah.
Yeah, and we look at others, and like that, I thought there's something wrong with me, because I looked at others and I compared myself and I felt like everybody else is moving forward. Everybody else knows what they're about, but I don't. I felt lost. I really felt lost. So when I did, probably 2 to 3 years of work within myself, and I, became confident, and I realized what I needed to do and that I was okay. And that stood to me very well. But then I went into the corporate world and I was working with CEOs in the corporate world, and I was doing very well in that job, and I loved my job, so I was very content. But I felt like I was faking it. I still felt like there was something, and I couldn't figure it out. I felt like I'm going to be found out here that I don't belong, or that there's somebody better than me that should be doing this job. And that was when somebody came to me and said, have you seen this article? You should read this. And they put a magazine in front of me, and it was about imposter syndrome.
No way.
And they said, have you ever heard of this? And I read it. Like, so the person who was giving me the article to read felt that way themselves, but they wanted me to read. So it was a colleague of mine, and she was like, can you read this? And tell me what you think. And she said, I think I suffer from that. And I said, well, that makes two of us. And she was so shocked. She said, how could you suffer from that? You walk around like you're, I said, well, that's what I see when I see you. So there were two of us there, and we ended up kind of coaching each other around.
I love it. I love it. And I think that's why it's so important to have the conversation, Lisa. It's so important to have the conversation so that people go, there is nobody but nobody. Michelle Obama talks about how she suffers from imposter syndrome. Like Bruce Springsteen, I think I said this on the workshop, or somebody brought it up on the workshop, that, he feels sick before he goes on stage, and nobody could say he's not good at his job. There's nobody but nobody who has any level of success walking about who hasn't had this experience, or that feels like they have it all together. Nobody.
And nobody. And I even heard a man. I heard a male actor, English actor, I can't remember who it was, and he was asked, what's your biggest fear? And he said, being found out. And they said, what do you mean being found out? That I'm a fake, I'm not all that. And you talked about it on the workshop about men. And the men do feel it. Men do feel it, but they deal with it differently. They deal with it in a different way, and it's just how our egos as men and women are different. Totally.
I think they brush it off. They perhaps, or address it and just power through. Whereas I think as women, we make it mean something about us. And then we go internally, like, there's something wrong with me. There must be something wrong with me. And we go into the comparison trap. And I'm not sure. And I will actually interview some men about this, because I'm not sure how, you know, men feel deep down about it. Because obviously, if it's hard for women to say, I'm not 100% confident that I'm doing the right thing or I have it all together, I can't imagine no men in the corporate world are going to turn around and say, I'm not really sure what I'm at here, lads. Do you know?
Yeah, I think they would. There's probably they may have one or two people that they feel secure with,
Yes.
that they could possibly, when they're, you know, out on the golf course, like, you know, type thing, or doing their whatever they're doing as buddies together, they may say, geez, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm winging it around here, but they kind of like, ha ha ha, you know, it's just sort of a jokey thing over a beer, whereas
Totally.
women tend to take it like they really can let it eat away at them.
Yeah. And hold them back.
As a result, not use their voice.
Yeah. And I feel like for me, and I did share this on the workshop, for me, nobody would have thought I had imposter syndrome, because I stayed at a level where I was comfortable and I was very, very successful. And to outsiders, they would have thought, yeah, you have everything and you have it all together. But inside, I was like, exactly what you say, there must be more. I felt like something was missing, but I didn't have the courage, the self-trust to go, actually, this isn't what I want. And I also didn't have the self-worth or value myself enough to say, I want the higher up, I want more, or I want the different. You know, it wasn't necessarily about money, but what I did find, that the pressure to climb and to do more, that I felt that pressure, and the more that I was performing and everything looked good on the outside, the more that everything was crumbling inside, and it was really falling apart inside. And you know, from externally, it would look like I had the perfect relationship, perfect family life, and inside was like a very broken relationship. And it took the work before the separation, and it's taken a lot of work since the separation to really go, what's my part? Why did I allow this? How did I create this? And it was because I didn't understand that, you know, my worth didn't come from what external validation I received. And I believed the mantra that to be a good wife was this, to be a good parent was this, to be good at your job was this. And now the reason I'm so passionate about these conversations is because my life has changed so much in the 5 years. And perhaps on the outside, it looks like it fell apart. And sometimes on the inside, it felt like that. But I can tell you, it feels more peaceful, because it's more from the inside out. It's more authentic. And I feel that I can ask for what I want. I've learned to ask for what I want. So I just feel there's so many women, particularly at the moment, there's conversations about going back into the workplace and people struggling with asking for what they need. And I know, you know, I also talk a lot about burnout and overwhelm. And I feel all these things come down to how we feel about ourselves. And so that's why I love what you do with people. Like, you speak about appreciating themselves, the relationship with themselves, because I know I've seen people in the world who do appreciate themselves, value themselves, and they don't, well, they may suffer from imposter syndrome, but they don't take on the external validation piece. And sorry, I feel like I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but I just thought that came up, and I thought, you know, it's so important for people to understand that just because something looks okay on the outside, it only matters if it's okay on the inside.
The inside.
Yeah.
And you've made such a valid point there, an important point, because if you're acting one way inside and you're looking another way on the outside, you are completely like, it's like fighting fire with fire, because you're not in alignment. So you're trying desperately to do one thing when your body is fighting against it, and you don't know what's going on, and you've got all these conflicts of emotions. And what that does is it breaks us down, and because we're like, when we're not in balance, so when our mind and our heart and our gut and all of that, as you know, when it's not in balance, it's in conflict. And that turns into anxiety, fear and anxiety, which then we suppress, and that becomes disease, which makes us
Yeah.
exactly what dis-ease is disease
Yeah.
makes us ill.
Totally.
Whereas when we just stop
Mm.
and we regroup and we build, it's like building ourselves up again.
Yeah.
You know, who am I?
Mm.
What do I need? What do
Yeah.
I want? What is real for me? What's good for me?
Yeah.
And we forget about a perception that other people are expecting from us, because that it's just a perception. It's
Totally.
what's good within us,
Yeah.
and that will shine through.
Yeah. And I think as well, a lot of people feel like it's one big light bulb moment, or it's one massive, you know, when we talk about doing the work and reflecting and things, you know, what I also want to say to people is it can be a series of tiny circumstances that you change. It can be as simple as, you know, I don't know, I'm sure you know James Clear of Atomic Habits. It can be drink a glass of water when you're at your desk. It can be get out for a walk. It can be reach out to community. I think a lot of people become overwhelmed because they think, oh, it's a massive thing and I have to do all this thing. And we as women are like, oh, don't give me another thing on my to-do list, or not another thing I have to do. And I feel like the secret is, which I had to learn, actually stepping back, actually breathing and pausing creates more for you. It blew my mind, because I thought work harder, double down, you know, oh, I have to sit for longer hours. And what I've learned over the years is sometimes just a little break, a phone call, getting out in nature. And some people do yoga, some people do meditation. There's all kinds of things you can do. It's actually more beneficial because our brains relax. And as you say, we're not in the stress, we're not in the fight or flight, but it takes a shift. And sometimes that's what I found from my community, from different people, from coaching, is that people can see a blind spot and go, if you reframe this, and how about, because women go, I don't have time. I don't have time. Oh God, don't ask me for time. And I haven't got the money, and the kids this. And what I love so much is that when people actually invest in themselves and spend time with themselves and learn to take it easy on themselves, everything else changes. And everybody says to me, this is easier. And to me, I feel like that's the secret. Whereas sometimes we think, oh, yoga, meditation, sure, that's great. I haven't the time for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you will create the time, because you'll burn out, or you'll crash, or you'll, as you say, you'll be sick. And then what happens is we get stress and anxiety and we medicate it. And I'm not saying people are wrong for that, but we medicate and then we never look at the source. And I saw that as well. It's like, this is wrong and that's wrong. And until my body went, that's enough. But until I learned, you know, well, what's going on within me and what do I want? And why do I feel like this? Nothing else was ever going to change. And I think that's the piece a lot of people think. They think it's a massive, massive thing. And sometimes it just takes shift in perspective and some reframing. And would you say that's your experience as well in working with your clients, Lisa?
Absolutely. And I think what helps, it's a shift in perspective. It's taking the step back, and it's exactly what you said.
Yeah.
It's reframing the story. Yeah. And also, when we're overwhelmed, we can't think straight.
Totally.
So when we're completely overwhelmed, our mind has gone into overload.
Yeah.
And it's like we just can't see the wood for the trees anymore.
Yeah.
So what I say to anybody is, when you're feeling overwhelmed, reach out for support.
Yeah.
To somebody, a trusted friend, a colleague, somebody you know.
Yeah.
That will, and I think this is a really important thing as well. And I spoke about this on an interview that I did recently. Reach out to somebody you know who will actually support you.
Yes.
Not buy into your pity party.
Yes. Yes.
Because if you reach out to somebody for sympathy and they're giving, yes, you want somebody who's empathetic, who will listen to you and hear what you're saying. But what you want is somebody who will come up with some helpful, useful support props for you.
I totally agree. You don't want somebody to get in the pity party with you. You don't want somebody to feed it. And I spoke about this earlier. It's the power of your community and knowing who to go. Yeah, and sometimes it isn't our close family and friends, because our close family and friends, they feel like they want to do the best for us, so they feel sorry for us and they take care of us, and that often isn't what we need. So I couldn't agree more. So this is a question that I find fascinating. So I'd love, and you've answered one of the things. What would you say you have found, either with yourself or working with your clients? What are the things that you would be like, they're my go-to things? Like I'm a big proponent of reach out to community, have people in your tribe, have people that will support you. And that's super important. But what are the other things that you would think are important for people who are feeling like I'm out of my depth, who may be experiencing imposter syndrome? Maybe it's just fear, maybe it's a bit of doubt. What would you use for yourself or with your clients?
So I suppose things that would help me and help my clients would be just so to get perspective on where you're at. So breathing.
Yeah.
Breathing is a big thing. Take yourself out. So whether it's with your children and they're, it's all hectic and chaotic and, you can just picture it, or you're overloaded with work, or it's a combination of everything. If you can take yourself, just go into the bathroom and lock the door.
Yeah.
With a glass of water and breathe and just choose. Okay, because everything is about our choice. And I know that can sound, when we're overwhelmed, like, what do you mean choice? I have no choice. Like, I'm stuck in the middle of this. But you're just going to make one little choice at that time that's going to take you through. So go into a place where you can just sit down, glass of water, and get your bearings together and breathe and kind of say, okay, what is the one thing I can do now that will help me get to the next place, whatever that might look like. It can be delegating. It can be doing something, delegating out with your children in some way that's you can see possible. It can be coming back to your desk and saying, okay, for this half hour, I'm just going to choose this particular thing. I'm not looking at my phone, not answering my phone and whatever. Because we get to choose all the time. What is my next step? Where do I get to go? But when we get overwhelmed, we feel like we have no choice. Yeah.
And I feel as well, we often forget to celebrate our successes.
Exactly.
If we yesterday or the day before, I had one of those days where I felt like I'd just been running around. And I was like, I didn't do this and I didn't do that. And when I actually sat and thought about it, I was like, but I did do, and here's a list of other things. But often we focus on the thing that perhaps we didn't do rather than all that we've done. And sometimes a win looks like the kids still being alive. Sometimes a win looks like
hasn't burnt down.
dinner. Sometimes it looks like getting through the day, getting through the day and everyone being okay. So sometimes we don't celebrate that. We think if we haven't gotten massive wins or we haven't changed the world, that we're not entitled to celebrate. And I think when we're caught up in stress, exactly as you're saying, we're not really grounded, we're not present. And then it's incredibly hard. We beat ourselves up,
Yeah, totally. And I think a really important thing to do as well is either at the end of the night when you're in bed. So rather than scrolling on your phone in the bed, because I am so anti-tech in the bedroom. I hate it. So, if you can journal on what went well for you today. What went well, maybe even, how you want tomorrow to go. Because if you set yourself up for success the night before, like, just have a plan in your head. It just has to be a plan. So journal on what you're acknowledging yourself for that day. Might just be one thing, but that's okay. It's acknowledgement.
Totally.
And then for the next day, just as a little outline of how you'd like that day to go. And it's kind of like, I don't know if you've heard the story, The Elves and the Shoemaker.
Yes, yes, of course.
So I was reading something, and that's a fable. And basically what it means is that, so the shoemaker would have the outline of the shoes ready. He'd go to bed, and when he'd get up, it was like, oh, the shoes are made. But really, it's that he was setting himself up for success. So when he got up the next day, he felt like the shoes were made.
Totally.
And again, it's not about writing pages and doing yoga and doing whatever. It's whatever helps you and you can incorporate it into your time anyway. So you're in bed anyway.
Yes. Yes.
Instead of scrolling on Instagram,
Yeah.
just do a little bit of jotting down.
Yeah.
Acknowledging yourself, a tap on the back, what what went well, and you can even self-reflect on, well, what did I learn from that?
Yeah.
It didn't happen, but what did I learn? Well, I learned I'm going to do this in the future.
Totally. Like one of the things a lot of people talk themselves out of is, if they want to exercise or something. And so we learned that it can be quite difficult to keep a commitment just to yourself because we get busy, or, some people are like morning exercisers, some evening. And one of the things that I find works really well for me is to make a commitment to somebody else, because I know I will. So I always set that up. I know the coming day, I'm walking at this time, or I'm doing this. There's certain things that are in my day. And I guarantee you, when it comes to that time, be it 7 a.m. or 1 p.m. or evening time, I will always, if I was to make the decision, then I would mentally talk myself out of it. But the fact that I've already made the decision the day before and I've made a commitment, I just do it. And then it becomes a habit. And then we don't beat ourselves up as much because we do the thing. And sometimes that's what I mean about a little step. If you know that the alarm going off at 6 a.m., you're like not going to crawl out of bed if it's just you. But if you promise your friend you'll meet them, you're just going to crawl out and go. And once you're out, you're up and out. So sometimes it can be little things like that. That's what works for me. Or I know a lot of people, put their workout gear at the end of the bed or on their chair. So they get up, they put that on straight away. Or, little things that make your life easier, that there isn't all this, by the time we get to the end of the day, the decision fatigue. And then we're choosing ourselves that way. And as you say, don't have to beat yourself up. Like if you don't exercise and you're like, well, why am I consistently not showing up? And I really want to do this. Well, maybe I need a gym membership. Maybe I need to get a friend on board. Or, as you say, look at what's working. And if it's not working, don't beat yourself up. Just go, oh, well, what would work for me in this? And I think that's what comes into coaching, is the accountability, because the weeks go quickly. And when you're sitting down with somebody and you're going, what did I actually do that, either weekly or fortnightly or whatever, you really see it in front of you, don't you? How we frequently choose others and not ourselves.
This is the thing. And that's what I was going to say to you, make the commitment to yourself. And if you can visualize the end result, instead of visualizing, oh God, I have to get out of the bed now at 6 a.m. But visualize the end result, how you're going to feel, how that's going to make you feel, whatever it is that looks like. It may not be exercising, could be anything that you're doing for yourself. Because if it was for your kids or if it was for your partner, whoever, you'll do it because you've made the commitment to that.
Totally. Yeah.
So it's all about kind of valuing yourself as much as you value them. And it also sets them up in a good way, because it's teaching your children that, mom does things for herself, not just for us. So when they grow up, they are not going to follow the same pattern of not doing anything for themselves, just always giving and doing for others.
Totally. And
we've got to be the example that we want to.
We're not role modeling, when you grow up, it basically sucks because everything is about everybody else and you're exhausted all the time. That at least they go with growing up is something that you get to embrace, very, very true. So Lisa, firstly, where can people find you if they would like to work with you?
So my website is lisamittenmentoring.com.
Okay.
You can also find me on Instagram, Lisa Mitten.
Brilliant.
Female confidence coach. If anybody wants to reach out to me, absolutely. I'm always delighted to just, my headset is falling out. Delighted to, to support. If people are unsure, if you'll see that on my videos on Instagram, if there's something that you're thinking, I'd love to do that, or I'd love to make that change, but I don't know how. Just reach out to me. There's no, you can reach out and ask questions, and I'm more than happy to help people and guide however I can.
Brilliant. And any final pearls of wisdom?
Oh
for us?
gosh. You know what? My words of wisdom to myself daily is trust yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Trust yourself. Trust the process.
Yeah.
You know, stop trying to be perfect and do things. There's no such thing as perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect is a perception.
Totally.
And we get to decide what we consider is perfect for us. And perfectly imperfect.
Absolutely.
Is
Absolutely.
100%. And just move forward a little bit. Like do something for yourself each day, whatever that might look like, something small, because when you're not doing anything, you're standing still and you're not going anywhere.
That's right.
So just a little piece each day for you, and just trust yourself and trust the process, and you will get there, and reach out for support.
Yes, I really believe reaching out for support. And another thing that you say that you left out of that was give yourself grace. You're a great believer in showing yourself compassion and giving yourself grace. And that's something I learned from you, like not to beat yourself up, not to be so hard on yourself. And I think that's the other message that I want people to get, that it's not about there's a right way or wrong way. Look at what we're doing and look, you're doing it all wrong. It's about there's another way, there's an easier way, that this is a process, this is a journey, and there is a whole community available to support you. And I didn't even realize that this type of support existed. And that's why I love coaching people. I mean, it sounds crazy, doesn't it? Coaching people who are going through change and a hard time, but it's because I know how to support them, and we've been there, and we're still on the journey. So I love, you always say, give yourself grace.
It's really important.
It is really super important.
Yeah.
So
take the pressure off. Stop expecting yourself to be 5-star. Nobody's 5-star all the time. No. So acknowledge yourself, give yourself grace, and be good to yourself.
Exactly.
And there's another thing I always say, Sharon, if you're your own opponent, you will never win.
Oh, mic drop, Lisa.
But isn't it so true?
You see, you did have a pearl of wisdom and you forgot about it.
That was my pearl of wisdom.
There it is.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. As always, this has been so much fun. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me.
A pleasure. Anytime, Sharon.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I hope everybody enjoyed it. And reach out with any comments, or if you have any feedback for us, we'd love to hear it. So absolutely. Thanks again.